We are live. It's Empire State of Baseball on this Monday, October the 2nd, 2023, airing on Twitch, X, Twitter, YouTube, and powered by StreamYard. Gentlemen, it's spooky season. Happy October. How you guys doing today on this October the 2nd, Corey Favs?
Not good. I'm not happy, obviously, with baseball. Not happy with the Jets after the game last night where they actually competed, fell short. That would have been an epic upset. Car trouble today. I mean, you name it. One thing after the other. So not a good start to October. But hopefully this time next year when we're doing the podcast, we'll have a lot of postseason baseball to talk about our teams. But I know we do have a whole postseason segment for the rest of baseball a little later today. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm back.
Yes. Welcome back, Joe. So happy to see you. In all seriousness, happy to have you back here, Joe. How are we dealing?
I know.
Well,
I can tell. I can't wait until he tells me how Carlos Rodon is going to be the comeback player of the year next year. We're going to have fun.
I can make the case. I'm ready.
We miss you just as much as we're going to miss these Mets and Yankees 2023 seasons. Obviously, we got to go and post-mortem with our teams later on in the Empire Express. Thomas, how are you doing on this Monday evening?
We're recovering from a wedding last night, so the 34-year-old body doesn't always bounce back as quickly as the 24-year-old body did. But we're fighting.
Nothing like a Sunday wedding. Nothing like a Sunday wedding.
It's not bad. Listen, as long as you just take the next day off. If you have the ability, you just take that next day off. And today, then, kind of got to be able to get some stuff done, get a normal night rest, have a short work week. I don't mind it really. I actually prefer the Sunday to the Friday, but I don't know if this is Empire State of Weddings.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, though, I want to echo Tom in the sense of drinking when you get older, because we had myself and Joe had a bachelor party this weekend for one of our good friends, James Kelly. And let me tell you something. Friday night, we're drinking all night. We're gambling at the casino. All of a sudden, I look down at my phone. It's after 4 a.m. I'm like, what is happening right now? By the time I went to sleep, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. Woke up at 10. I haven't been that hungover in a long time. In a long time. And I was not
there Friday. I got there Saturday.
I was a zombie until about 5 o'clock Saturday. So it takes a lot to recover.
I'm not even hungover. I'm just tired. I'm just exhausted. I'm ready to go to bed.
My big problem was having to sleep on a floor mattress. I didn't sleep a link. I was listening to Corey snoring the birds away, and I'm sitting there. I was on 10 minutes of sleep on Sunday morning, and I had to watch.
Wait, how many people did that room accommodate, and how many people were in that room?
So that room accommodated 3 technically, and there were 4 of us in the room.
Oh.
And the options were spoon Corey or floor mattress. So,
and he made the right
floor mattress won by the sliver.
I think he made the wrong call, actually.
I think I made the wrong call, but
Corey looks like just an absolute cuddle monster. Look at that face.
Oh man. Well, Corey, Joe, Thomas, glad to see you back here, and it is postseason time for 2023. We've finally reached that point. It's crazy to think that Homer Bush interview to start the season felt like it was just last week. And now we are at the tail end of this baseball season as a whole. And obviously, we're going to get more into our own teams on the Empire Express as we check into the lineup card for tonight's episode. We get into the Mets, and the Mets had a couple of big moves over the last 24 hours, dismissing Buck Showalter, more of a parting of ways. It seemed a very mutual decision between the club and the ex-Mets manager and Buck Showalter, so we're going to touch on that. Obviously, David Stearns officially introduced to the New York Metropolitans organization to become their first president of baseball operations. So obviously we will touch on that. For the Yankees, Aaron Boone, just reported by Andy Martino, looks like he's staying put for the final year of his contract for the 2024 season. We have to assume that the general manager is going to stay with the manager as well, but we'll get into a post-mortem of the Yankees and Mets season as we move along to the show. We also have Trick of the Trade Trigger the Trade's going to split up our big segments for tonight. And Corey and I have the trade for you, former Mets and Yankees deal. And then we're going to wrap things up with a new bit, the postseason push. And obviously, it's going to be covering our postseason here. And we got our brackets that we got to reveal later on tonight, gentlemen. We're going to go through our 4 list of brackets and talk about the possible dark horses that can make it all the way to the Fall Classic. Who's going to win the thing? We're going to get into those predictions later on tonight in the postseason push. But for now, let's get into the Empire Express. And we had to bid adieu to the Yankees and Mets the 2023 season on Sunday. The Mets wrapping up with I believe now 75-8. Did they win that game? What was that? The result of that suspended game? I don't know if the results actually came in.
Does it not count?
Either not count or it goes to whatever the score was. I would assume because it got passed, it's an official game.
Yeah, I just saw it was a 74-87 record. I'm like, wait, that's not, that math doesn't check out, but I forgot about the suspended game.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if they announced it at all. They said
I think they've had it before where like they just, if a game, they didn't pick it back up, or it's like a game that we had to get made up, but it just never matters. They never made it up. I think it goes like that.
It's an official game after 5 innings, so it's in the 9th, and I would assume that the Mets would probably have lost that game since they were down 2-1 in the 9th, even though the home team was not the last to bat.
But the lead like the lead change happened in the 9th, right? It was tied going into the 9th.
It was tied going into the 9th, and the Mets
forward,
I believe so.
I'm guessing they just act like that game never happened.
So presumably it's a 74-88 record. Yankees finished 82-80, and we were throwing up pom poms for the Yankees finishing with over 500 record over the weekend against the Kansas City freaking Royals. So that's how that season went. Both divisions though contain 3 postseason teams ahead of the Yankees and Mets, and that's a slap in the face. And for New York, it's the first New York-less postseason since 2014. So it kind of sucks not seeing, obviously, the 2 biggest market teams in it, the Yankees and Mets, but even just across the game, like the Padres not in it, the Cubs not in it, the Red Sox, a lot of big market teams missing the postseason. Does this hurt the baseball postseason in a way, or do you think people are still going to be coming out and watching?
I think it hurts a little bit not having a big market. Now, remember, you still have the Dodgers. You still have a couple of teams in there. Baltimore's a fairly moderate-sized market. The Braves have a big following.
Well, Baltimore is super small market.
They're going to get some attention. But as far as the New York region is concerned, there is no interest in this. That clearly hurts. I'm sure if you had MLB, if you had ex-Commissioner Manfred, this would not have been the exact teams that he would have drawn up in the postseason. But at the same time, MLB's attendance is at a record high over the last, I think, decade or so. Over 70 million fans went to the ballparks. TV ratings were up. Attendance was up. So at the end of the day, baseball is going to count this as a success. They're going to ride the momentum into the postseason. I think the biggest problem here is you have a lack of stars in the postseason outside of the Braves and the Dodgers. I think there's a lot of players that most people don't know about. Julio Rodriguez didn't make it in, with the Mariners falling a game short. A lot of the stars on the Yankees, Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole, aren't in there. No Mike Trout or Ohtani. So I think there's a little bit of apprehension about that. The other sports, big stars make the playoffs. There's very rarely the marquee stars don't make the playoffs. Baseball's a different sport. But the good news is they got guys like Gunnar Henderson, a lot of those guys on the Orioles that are going to become stars, and this is where they're going to make their mark. And I think that's good for baseball long term.
Yeah, and even though the viewership might be a little down because you are losing the New York market, and a lot of the New York market will just tune out entirely and not watch the playoffs if they're not a diehard baseball
Except
fan.
for us, for schmucks.
It will
be watching this.
We'll be watching it because we will continue our podcast throughout the postseason. So more to come there in terms of scheduling. But even though the ratings might take a little bit of a hit, it will be interesting. I would really like to see a couple of different teams make a run here. I mean, could the Twins finally break their playoff drought in terms of actually winning a series and advancing? Who knows? We'll see. Rangers spent a lot of money. One of the exciting off seasons. Could they get hot in the postseason? The Blue Jays are a good team. The Diamondbacks. How about the Diamondbacks? A nice young team led by the Corbin Carroll, most likely going to be the NL Rookie of the Year. We'll see what the final rewards are in that category, but it looks like it will be Corbin Carroll most likely. Could the Diamondbacks make a run as the 6th seed? So I personally think it will be interesting. Yeah, the Marlins too versus the Phillies. I think it'll be interesting to watch, despite the actual viewership ratings probably taking a bit of a snag without either New York team.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a pretty big snag. Baseball has increasingly become more and more regional. I don't think most baseball fans, if their team is not playing in the playoffs, will not be watching the playoffs. Maybe they'll tune in for a little bit of the World Series. They'll maybe tune in game 1. Maybe they'll tune in if it's going to be a closeout game. Other than that, maybe Dodgers, Braves get some other fan bases like interested, because that could be a really just a slugfest and a great series. I think it could be good baseball played. I think it could be exciting, and we're going to be watching it. But I don't know. Like, the actual numbers are going to come in down, I think, a lot. Especially if the Dodgers the Dodgers and Braves for some reason don't make it to the World Series, we could see like a record low World Series rating.
New York List postseason begins tomorrow. We're going to get more into the postseason later in our postseason push segment. And the reason why it's a New York List postseason, well, the Yankees sucked and the Mets sucked. Well, let's start with the Mets, though. So the biggest news piece was Buck Showalter. The Mets decided to part ways with their manager, informing him before yesterday's game. So Buck was able to get one more game in as a manager. I don't even know do you guys even think Buck's going to return as a manager to baseball? You think he's done?
Two things here. Yeah, I think he is going to return, because I think Buck wants the one thing that he doesn't have. That's a World Series championship. He has now been the guy that has left before multiple teams have won World Series. So I think he's missing that one ring or on his finger, and I think he's going to try and pursue that. And there's going to be a couple of teams where he has a chance to go to, and they have a chance to compete right away. I actually thought the Yankees would be one of them, but at the moment, it looks like Boone's staying put. But on the Mets side of this, I'm a little annoyed at how they handled this. I don't understand why they had Billy Epler go down yesterday before the game, tell Buck he was out, and then have Buck announce it himself at his own presser. I think that was a bad way to do it. Stearns can say what he wants, and listen, we'll get into his introductory press conference and what he said and what we liked and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if this was Stearns' move, regardless of contract or anything, Stearns could have walked himself downstairs, because there's no way Stearns wasn't in the building the last few days. That's just a fallacy. That's not true. So the idea that he can instruct Epler to go fire the manager, but he can't turn around and walk down and say face-to-face to the manager, hey, Buck, we're starting my regime. It's no offense to you or anything. I'm just going to do things differently, and I'm just going to hit the reset button. That's fine.
What a yikes start for David.
But Buck deserves more respect than that. He was a good manager. He was a good soldier. He won 101 games for the Mets last year. He was under contract for another year. And Cohen is, to his credit, has leaving Stearns to run the show. But Cohen could have said, listen, you got to deal with Buck for 1 year because I have him under contract. And in all honesty, he's a good soldier. So I just don't like the way that was handled. I thought it could have been done today or tomorrow. I know they didn't want to overshadow Stearns' press conference, but the idea that we're going to kick Buck, kick him to the curb, have him manage one last game, and have him himself announce his firing, it's just a botched. It's a botched start for
yeah. I think the latter point you made, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you see even just a player announce time away from a team, it's because of a punishment. It's because of some kind of suspension, or hell, you've seen players have to force to step away from the game because of injury. In this case, it's almost as if like Showalter, the season's on you, and you're gonna have to take accountability of it with your last presser before you take the field. I thought it was very weird handling by the New York Mets to have Buck announce that himself. Corey, what were your thoughts on this whole thing?
Kind of indifferent. I was actually pretty shocked that it did come at the time that it did. I did not expect it to be announced like that prior to the game, with Buck making the announcement himself. I will say one thing too: the players gave him a standing ovation when he announced the lineup, when he did the lineup card exchange just prior to the game. So it goes to show the players did love Buck. There's a whole argument to be made. I mean, in terms of, was it the right move? Was it Buck's fault? That's a whole separate conversation. But I think that goes to show the players genuinely did like playing for Buck. I personally did like Buck too. It just, the way the year played out, though, that this is the way I look at it too. If you're running a business, and ultimately baseball is a business, granted, I don't think the players performed. But if you're the team, if you're the guy who's supposed to run all the players, and all the players are not playing up to the lineup card, something's wrong there. I don't know what it is. I also agree that, listen, if I was going to be taking over a managerial job or a president of baseball operations job in any business, forget about baseball, any business in general, if I'm going to become a CEO at a company and the company completely underperformed and the shareholders are very angry because they lost a ton of money, all their investments in the tank, am I going to want the person who was previously managing that company to report to me? Or am I going to want a new fresh face, someone that maybe I was successful with, maybe a Craig Counsell? I know he's the hot name. Maybe it's someone else he has in mind. We'll see, TBD. So I don't disagree with the move. I was a bit shocked at the timing of how it was announced.
My problem is, and I'll let Tom get in here in a second. My problem is, if that's the case, then fire Epler too. All right. If that's the case, Epler needs to go to. We go through this with the NFL all the time. We get a new GM that's hired from a bad team. The GM keeps the coach for an evaluation year. Then he fires the coach. Then somebody fires the coach a couple of years later. And then the GM and the GM doesn't get to pick a new coach. We go through, the Jets have gone through this several times. They did it with Rex Ryan and Izek, and Maccagnan came in, then fired Rex Ryan. This whole thing, you never separate the head from the snake. You never do it, because when you fire one, the person now gets to put a new guy in charge. So Epler gets to pick a new manager, presumably, or Stearns. They're going to pick that new manager. And let's say you sour on Epler in 2 years, you fire him, and you're like, well, the coach isn't bad, but we're going to get a new GM. And the new GM's not going to get to pick a new coach because we got a coach under contract. So listen, I get it. I get wanting to hit the reset button, but there was a better way to do it. And two, it feels like Buck is being scapegoated here. At the end of the day, it's not Buck's fault that Scherzer had a 4.5 ERA as a Met. It's not Buck's fault that Verlander was hurt for the first month. It's not Buck's fault that Marte looked like a corpse in right field. That's not on him. These guys underperformed, and they shipped him out. You can't tell me he was the key reason you guys won 101 games and then turn around and tell me he's at fault that we only won 74. That's ridiculous. This is the same guy. The fact of the matter is, some of these high-priced players didn't perform. You shipped them out, which was the right move in Scherzer's case, which we'll see with Verlander, but it's looking like a pretty good move. But at the end of the day, they underperformed. The manager is the same manager as the year before. Something was missing in the team, but it feels like Buck is being handed the body and said, this was your kill. You go bury it. You take the fall for it. And that's my problem.
I don't think this season is on Buck. Frankly, I don't think Buck's the reason they won 101 games last year. I think the reason was the players played. They played well. They played up to the back of their baseball cards, or a lot of them went way above the back of their baseball cards. And then that's where a really, really good team last year. This year, they didn't play well. I don't think that's Buck's fault. Stearns coming in, getting rid of Buck. Again, not his fault that they were losing, but if this is going to be his team and he wants to instill his culture, whatever that culture might be, if Buck doesn't mesh with that, with what that messaging he wants and what he wants out of players and how he wants the clubhouse to run, then Buck does have to go. Maybe maybe Epler does match that. Is Epler really just a puppet for Stearns? You know, if Stearns is the one really calling the shots, doesn't really matter who the GM is. I think, Corey, you're making that point.
Yeah.
And, you know, if Stearns says, listen, I need you to go out and sign Cody Bellinger, I don't think that they're going to. Like, hey, go make that happen. You have this much budget to make it happen. Cool, go ahead and do it. I'm sure he's capable of doing that. But if it's Stearns' show and he's going to run it and he wants a certain culture in place, he needs to have those guys who can instill it.
Yeah, and I will say with
Can anybody name? Go for it, Corey. Sorry.
I was going to say, with Billy Epler, too, and again, I disagree with him a lot in the first half of the season. I had a lot of complaints. I did like what he did at the deadline, though. But with Billy Epler, I can't deny he's not a good negotiator because he did get a lot of these players in. He seems to work well in the international markets, too. Brought Kodai Senga in. We know with Ohtani during his Angels regime there. But one other thing, I think there could also be a very important technicality about what happened yesterday. David Stearns was a Brewers employee at the time of the Buck firing yesterday. So by law, he technically is not able to.
I understand that, but the order clearly came from him. And he can hide behind the contract all he wants. He spoke to someone, and that was Epler, because Epler was the guy who went downstairs and did it. And they even acknowledged that this came from Stearns. So the problem I have in this,
I need an investigation open. Then
the problem I have in this is Stearns was in charge, whether his contract or whatever BS you want. It was his decision. So he had the power to fire him and communicate it to somebody that he was firing him, but he couldn't pick up the phone and call him himself. Or just wait a day. Just wait a day or two. If you didn't want to do it on your press conference day, do it tomorrow and say, listen, Buck, you've been great here. We acknowledge the difference you've made, but at the end of the day, we're going in a different direction. That's fine. But to me, this felt like two things. He was only here 2 years. The last two managers were also here 2 years, which are Mickey Callaway and Luis Rojas. So that tells me you think of Buck the way you think of Mickey Callaway and Luis Rojas, which is an absolute insult because the credibility Buck Showalter bought when he came in last year after the clown show 4 years in a row with the other two guys is immense. And then the second thing is just be straight with the guy. Don't let the guy walk to the gallows, which is what you made him do. You made him announce his own firing, manage the team as a dead man. That I didn't understand.
Well, Joe, I guess my lame duck devil's advocate response to defend the organization that made this decision. Do you think they maybe wanted to give Buck that one last day in the sun, and if they made an announcement beforehand, the fans would give him the respect? They could throw a graphic up saying "Thank you, Buck" and make this a whole thing for his last game of the season. Could have just been a marketing ploy for if Buck's last day.
Again, I think the conversation has to be had. It felt like nobody was going to address it and they were going to leave Buck to do it. It felt weird. He never talked to Stearns. I get it. Change the regime, contract, all that crap. But you could have called a presser or something and had Buck having his last goodbye.
We got to move on. Sorry, Joe, but my last note on this, I found this interesting. Anybody name the last 4 NL managers of the year? Well, they're no longer a manager in baseball. Mike Shildt, Don Mattingly, Gabe Kapler, Buck Showalter. Very interesting stuff. Yankees, real quick, since we're still on the Empire Express. Thomas, we're keeping you up there, bud. All right, so let's touch on the Yankees more on a postmortem. I mean, Joe did a great job in kind of covering the 2023 season as a whole, leading up to the changes. But for the Yanks, I mean, what really went wrong this season? What was the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway from this 2023 season? Why it led to a missed playoff?
I mean, we've said it a million times. It's been an issue for probably half a decade. That's led to this. And then Judge hurt his toe, and that's the offense. And without Judge, this team was absolutely abysmal. He came back, took a little time to get going. And then they actually weren't they the best team in baseball in September? I think record-wise they were. If maybe they didn't finish that way because they lost series to the Royals, but I think going into that last weekend they had the best record in September. So listen, they just weren't a very good team. They're a team that needs to have a lot of decisions have to get made with this team, with the prospects, with the big contracts, see who you can move, who you can't move. and prospect wise, see who you want to be part of the future and who you need to ship off for more major league ready guys. A lot has to happen. Boone's back. As you mentioned at the beginning of the show, if I've said that I don't think Boone's the issue with the Yankees, I don't think he's the solution. But I think next year could be a tough year, and you might as well just kind of lame duck him. Maybe he can turn it around, and then you give him another contract, and if not, then you replace him.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the team's got to be World Series caliber in 2024 for Boone to retain his job. His last year of his season.
I don't think they have to be World Series caliber. I think they need to.
I think they
need to make the playoffs for him to. I think they need to make the playoffs and get at least to the ALCS. It depends what it looks like. If the team is a bunch of Band-Aids, then they have to go further. But if it's hey, it's the next step of Volpe, it's Dominguez coming along. It's let's say Wells and Pereira are part of the solution, and maybe Peraza and some other guys are gone, and it's hey, they made that step. I think you could say it was a successful year. In terms of blaming Boone. I don't think they have to make the World Series for him to keep his job next year, though.
I'm not saying that they have to make the World Series. I'm saying the World Series. The Braves are a World Series caliber team, but a best of 5 series can go either way depending on how it goes. And I don't think that's going to cost the manager their job to have a season like that. World Series caliber and being a team in the World Series are two different things. What were you going to say, Joe?
I don't know if the Yankees, without just exploding the budget, can become a World Series caliber team by next season. I don't see where it is. Your two best players, Cole just had his best year this year. Judge had his best year last year. And these guys are now on the wrong side of 30. And not that I'm not going to say that they're going to have a significant drop off, but you just had the two best seasons that either of them could possibly have, and you didn't get the job done. Now they're getting older. The team has gotten a lot older around them. I don't see a way to change the direction of this team in one off season.
I think some of what happened this year, though, towards the end, the Yankees started really just shutting guys down and had no interest bringing them back. You look at a guy like Nestor Cortez, they shut him down. And if they were in it, do you think that he could have fought himself to get back? I think there's other guys in that boat. I think you could add some guys. You could make some moves to this lineup, bring in some new guys, some lefty bats, hopefully, and the team could be a good amount better. They were horrible in one-run games. They blew a lot of games they shouldn't have won. They frankly, they're a couple plays away from being a playoff team. There's games that they just should not have lost, and I'm not saying they would have made any noise in the playoffs, but they should have been in it. It just they were so bad for so long there.
My problem with the Yankees right now is it seems like they are extremely content, which is something that the Yankees have never done. If the Yankees finished in 4th place under George, the manager's gone. That is an automatic fire. If you missed the playoffs by 1 game and you had some bad luck, that's one thing. You finished in 4th place. What was it? 9 games out of a playoff spot or whatever it was. The manager should be gone. It's not Boone's fault, but are you missing anything by not having Boone as the manager and sending that message to your fan base that we're going to do everything possible to put a winner on the field? Right now, it feels like the Yankees don't really care if they make the playoffs or not. And that's a weird spot to be. That's usually coming from the Mets. This is it's a very odd feeling from the outside looking in that it looks like the Yankees are just very content. With
get in here, Rich.
Next year.
Oh, I was gonna let Corey get in. Actually,
thought you were.
Well, listen, I'll just talk real quick on the Yankees, and I'll give it back to you, Rich. But listen, you want to know why the Yankees didn't do good, and I'll tell you right now. I mean, the Yankees always, at least in our lifetimes, and I said it several times in prior shows, was an offense built around power, especially lefty power to the right field porch. And what happened with them this year? OPS. They were the 6th worst in baseball as a team with OPS. And granted, Judge had a phenomenal season when he was on the field. He missed a lot of time this year. But who's the next guy in your batting order? Giancarlo Stanton. Giancarlo Stanton, OPS, 695. I mean, the guy hit 191 below the Mendoza line. Who else is in the middle of that lineup? Anthony Rizzo. He missed, 60 games. They had the whole concussion issue early in the year. That was managed absolutely terribly. He finished with an OPS of 706.
He thinks the season's still going.
Yeah, he thinks the season's still going. Anthony Volpe, 666 OPS. So your offense was struggling to consistently hit with power throughout the season. And then look on the pitching side. Actually, got to give a ton of props to the bullpen. Tom mentioned at the very start of the season that he thinks the Yankees had the best bullpen in baseball going into the season. And if we look purely based on ERA, they did. They had the best bullpen ERA in 2023. But look at the rotation. Probable Cy Young and Cole, great. But what about after that? Carlos Rodon, he's supposed to be your solid, big acquisition number 2, missed half the season and was absolutely awful when he played. Luis Severino, another guy, a lot of potential, was hoping he was going to do well, absolutely terrible. Nestor Cortez, what a story Cortez was last year, had a solid year for this team. Another one, missed half the season, ERA just under 5 when he was actually on the field. So the rotation outside of your top guy in Cole was absolutely trash. And your lineup outside of Judge when he was actually on the field was trash. That's why you lost. It's the players.
I could also say, like, when the Yankees went into this year, and I mentioned this on my River Ave Rewind, they went in with the super rotation that included Montas that you forgot to mention there, Corey.
He came back.
And the Yankees were expected to do big things. He came back. He came back, to 2 innings, no one runs out of the bullpen. Going to be a very cheap deal for Montas. But there were some positives that emerged with those spots that opened up. I think Clark Schmidt for the 162-game stretch, I think gave you what you would want out of a back-ended rotation guy. Michael King, really impressed in the last month of the season. 2 players that you could possibly fix into your rotation next year. And to Joe's point, sadly to say it, there's a lot. You have to just have a lot of hope in players to just play at the back of their baseball card for you to have a chance. And I don't know if the Yankees are going to have that kind of chance. You got to hope Rodon pitches the way he pitched in San Francisco. You got to hope that maybe 1 or 2 of these prospect players fully develop or figure it out in the major league level in 2024. And I know it's kind of unfair to say, but when you look at this roster and how this lineup's going to get constructed going into next year, half that lineup is going to be your farm system. So there's got to be a lot of stock invested on those kind of players, but it's going to be a tough one for 2024, the Yankees, where it could go really well if everything works out, but the likelihood is not everything's going to work out.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think the Yankees, as far as a roster construction is concerned, you got a lot of guys where the back of their baseball card is riddled with injuries, whether we like it or not. Stanton's always injured. Rodon is always injured. I know we're going to get into Rodon in a second. Rizzo is often injured, although not catastrophically like he was this year. Judge, even to an extent, has had his fair share of injuries. So
injuries.
The Yankees are, and Yankee fans are upset and saying that, well, we had an injury-plagued season. Well, this is now the story for the last half decade. And the bottom line is you're built around players who are consistently injured every few years. And it's not like this is a random occurrence for a lot of these guys. This is consistent. Montas is now an injury-plagued player. Luis Severino was supposed to be your number 2 in the rotation. He was an injury-plagued player. These are guys that everybody knows has injury problems. And yes, they have the potential, but that's too many players that you're relying on a daily basis to stay healthy that just have proven a history of not staying healthy. And listen, I get Judge has a couple of freak ones there. He got hurt sliding one.
Rizzo had a freak one. I mean,
I understand that, but Rizzo's had a bad back, and that's a problem. So something has to change with the roster construction. The Yankees have to find guys maybe who aren't an elite talent, but have an elite ability to stay on the field and stay healthy, especially in that rotation right now, because after Cole, there is no one that you have faith that can stay healthy for 160.
Well, how much of is it auditing the players than it is to look over your training staff here? I mean, there's a lot of soft tissue injuries in the mix over the last few years that I feel like the training staff is just not held accountable for.
I'm sure that's something to do with it. I think the Rizzo thing, especially, it lends itself to saying, hey, we really need to look at our protocols on injuries with players. The thing with Dominguez as well, I don't know how much of that was a young kid trying to prove that he was okay versus an overlooked saying, well, he's a young kid, he'll be fine, kind of thing. But those two injuries in particular really alarm you and say, hey, we might have a broken process or two in our injury evaluation staff, and that needs to change.
Yep. And one last point, because I know we do have to move to our postseason segments as well, and for the second half of the show. But one point that applies to both the Mets and the Yankees, they both seem to play better once all of this young talent came to the major leagues. You look at the end of September, the Mets position players woke up. Lindor, Alonso, I mean, they tore the cover off the ball August and September. And the Yankees, we said it earlier, best record in baseball in the month of September. So you have something to look forward to at least. A lot of kids have now made it to the major league level for both organizations. So it'll be fun to see how the offseason plays out.
Yes, sir. And we'll touch more on the Yankees and Mets thoroughly in the offseason when we have our offseason episodes, and more importantly, touch on the offseason agenda. We did it last year in November, where we basically sketched out our plans if we were the general managers of either of our teams, and then just kind of get into who should be coming back, who should be coming back. So we'll get more into that in November. Before we get into Trick of the Trade, Joseph, how could the faithful follow us on Twitter?
We are live we are airing live on X, formerly known as Twitter. We got over 2,300 followers. You can follow us at ESB Podcast, Corey at G Gory, myself at JR Pugs, Rich at Rich J Rivera, Tom at T Waspel, all on X, formerly known as Twitter.
All right, and in Joe's absence last week, as part of our ESB Game of the Week, which was core curriculum, Corey Fabs made a nice comeback right into the standings, 3 points, uncontested. So he's right in the mix there. So you never know. This next month, we still have a month worth of games left. Maybe he'll pull off the miracle comeback, and we'll find out what he has in store for us tonight, because he could pull a point himself in Trick of the Trade. So Corey, what trade do we have up for our guys tonight?
Yeah, we're going to go back in time a couple of decades. Mets acquired in March of 2000 Joe McEwing, nice super utility name, possible managerial candidate for the Mets as they're doing their managerial search. So I thought it was pretty fitting to get his name in here. They did trade for the Cardinals. It was a 1-for-1 swap in spring training of 2000, right before the Mets actually went to Japan. They played the Japan opener back then in 2000. So we have the Mets and the Cardinals doing a 1-for-1 player swap.
It's not Rick Ankiel, is it?
It is not Rick Ankiel.
Great guess.
I do like to guess,
Great
though.
Guess.
Yep.
Jason Isringhausen.
Not Jason Isringhausen. I know.
Glendon Rush.
Not Glendon Rush. Although Glendon Rush did become a Met around that time. I forget if it was 99 or 2000.
Jesse Orosco.
It was Jesse Orosco. That is correct. So Jesse,
I'm back, baby.
Oh my.
Yep. So Jesse Orosco had a long career. Obviously, most notoriously known for his 80s run with the Mets, 1986 especially, getting that last out. He was the pitcher there, celebrating. But he had a long career, 24 years. Most of his time was with the Metropolitans. Yeah. He had an 8-year run. He was actually a Yankee too. I mean, he only pitched 4 1/3 innings, so we're not going to.
He pitched for everybody, Corey.
He's a immaculate grid, just super
immaculate grid, yeah, legend right there.
Oh yes.
All right. Yep. So Joe pulls the point. He actually now is tied for first place again with Tom at 16. But we do have one more. It is the Yankee version of Trick of the Trade, and I have tonight's trade. This one happened in August of 2016. Of course, this is that big sell-off year that the Yankees had. The Pirates acquired one player from the Yankees. Yankees brought in Tito Polo, who I think was used towards a different trade down the line. I forget which one. And Stephen Tarpley, who had a couple of stints out of the bullpen. But who do the Pirates acquire in this deal? I'll just throw this hint out. This player is a starting pitcher. And there goes Corey.
AJ Burnett?
Corey can't defend it. Great guess, not AJ Burnett, though.
Nova.
It is Ivan Nova. Yes, absolutely. That's a great pull, Thomas. Ivan Nova, a forgotten Yankee member of the rotation. And actually, he was a steady Yankee rotation piece for a number of years.
Yeah.
So Ivan
Nova. I liked him. He was one of those. I feel like he's like a Monty for us. Like he was just good, solid. Like he got hit around sometimes, but I don't know.
That's why I call him Supernova. When he blew up big. And
he had some blow-ups. But
Andrew Corey in the chat was thinking Xavier Nady, which was what I was thinking because I remember Nady being traded midway. I was actually going to say Neil Walker.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, but I know Neil Walker got traded to the Mets, not the Yankees from the Pirates.
Yeah, once you said starting pitcher, I was just like, all right, the Yankees and Pirates have made so many trades. So it was again that's like full immaculate grid style. Like, all right, who could I use as a Yankee and a Pirate?
Absolutely. I would love to create a Pirates Yankees all-star team and see what we can come up with. Yeah, Nady was a few years back. Actually, we did the Nady deal as one of the trick of the trades. But he was not the guest. It was actually we were trying to guess Damaso Marte. That was about an episode last year. Corey, hopefully you weren't trying to guess Ivan Nova before you got knocked out there.
Oh boy! No, I was going to ask a question right before I got knocked out. I was about to say, was this a player who actually pitched with the Yankees or made his debut with the Pirates? So it sounds like it was a guy who did pitch with the Yankees. But Ivan Nova was not my first guess. So.
And Ivan Nova is the pick. So point for Tom, point for Joe. So still, Tom is in the lead. So Tom snatched the lead right back from Joe just as quick as he lost it. So it'll be interesting next month. We still got some games left here and still enough time for me and Corey to get right back into the mix.
Listen, championship teams in the playoffs, when they go down, they give up a run, they take it right back. We take it right back.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know a lot about
just lucky I wasn't here for the last few ones.
Oh, I mean the last one was like let's ask as many Met questions as we possibly can. So Corey did a great job. I wasn't gonna get those questions, but I think there should be a bit of an asterisk. There.
Core with a lot of Met questions in the last core curriculum. All righty.
I don't think there was a Yankee question. It was like, let's just keep talking about the Mets. So
I think I will. Maybe
Joe was never
next
gone.
time. I know he'll come back. All righty. Let's we're gonna move on. Before we move on to our last big bit, Corey, what do you got on Instagram?
Yeah, for Instagram, go ahead and follow us. Download the Instagram app. Empire State of Baseball, we'll be posting shorts. We'll post our post-game recaps. I know it's been a little while since we've done them. Rich, I know you did post a nice River Ave rewind yesterday, final one
nice
of the
post-mortem.
year. A nice post-mortem rewind. We'll probably throw something very similar for the Mets over the next couple of days with David Stern and some of the news there. But go ahead, download that Instagram app, follow Empire State of Baseball, myself at Corey Favs, Joe with JR Pugs, Rich at Rich J Rivera, Tom at T Waspel. Again, you can watch all of our archived recaps, reels, and more.
And the Rookie Report. The Rookie Report was our new thing. Yes. We actually had the final installment of a very new segment today with the season being over. But next year we'll bring back the Rookie Report as well.
I have to figure it out because I don't know how many rookies the Mets and Yankees are going to necessarily start out with. So we'll have to.
It's going to be a very short list to start.
It might have to be a baby Bombers and baby Mets kind of thing where. First and second year players, but I like the idea of a Rookie Report.
Rookie Report was fun to put together, even though it was such a last minute throw-in idea for us, but we're excited to launch it fully for 2024. All righty, but we're still in 23, and with 2023 in October Ball, it's now time for the postseason push. First time we're launching this segment for the playoffs, and for today, instead of covering, a specific series, we're going to talk about the playoffs as a whole because we have our own brackets that we're going to reveal to you in just a little bit. And I'll start with mine here for the playoff push, and we're just going to continue to follow along with our postseason brackets, eliminate teams as we go, and we'll see who gets close out of this one. Hell, maybe it'll count towards an ESP game point. Who knows? All righty. Well, I'm going to kick this thing off. So here's my bracket here for the postseason. Obviously, listen, at the end of the day, that finals matchup is most likely going to be a finals that most people have in their brackets between the Stros and the Braves. And I do have the Braves prevailing, but some of the surprises in this Not a really much surprise of an AL East team taking out the Minnesota Twins, but the Blue Jays will do the Yankees business this year. I think Texas will ride the momentum off a great series with Tampa. Take Baltimore in that one. I know it's Tom's Birdland, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but I think Texas has a chance to make a surprise run. And speaking of surprise run from the National League, I think the Diamondbacks have everything it takes to make a deep run into this playoffs. They have the pitching, they have the young core hitting. I think, listen, you're going to take out the Dodgers. Your best shot, if it's not a wild card, you got to do it in a best of 5 series. So I think the Diamondbacks will get the Dodgers here, but ultimately it's going to be Atlanta prevailing. This is Atlanta's World Series to lose at the end of the day. Gentlemen, when you look at this bracket, I'll start here with Tom. Any real shocks here? Anything you completely disagree with?
No. Again, the Braves are the class of Major League Baseball. You can never go wrong with picking the Houston Astros to get to the World Series. I think I don't remember exactly. I think I have the Diamondbacks going pretty far as well in mind. So I do like that pick.
Went out on a limb, Rich. Really.
Yeah, I know. But we had to listen. I had to kick it off.
But it's not about going out on a limb. It's like picking who you think's gonna win, and like who can you say? And I'm sure Joe will try to make some point of why the Braves are overrated. But like, listen, the Braves are such
a balanced team.
My big thing with you on this particular one is the Texas Rangers getting to the ALCS.
Mm-hmm.
They backed into the playoffs. They even had the division stole out from under them. And if they had another week, they would have been out of the playoffs altogether because the Mariners were right there. So for me, I just don't think they can rustle up enough momentum nor enough pitching to get them even past the Orioles or the Rays. I mean, they have a tough draw going through both of them. At least with the Twins or Toronto, you could say, okay, you got an easy road till you get to the Astros. The Rangers have a miserable road trying to get through Tampa and Baltimore.
Oh, yeah. I think I think the one thing here that I'm trying to throw into my bracket here is the factor of momentum. As you know, the first round, the wild card matchups, all the games happen at the higher seeds home ballpark. So if this were to happen in Tampa, where Texas upsets the team that from the very beginning everybody had pegged to be in the World Series, I mean, that's such big momentum for Texas. They might just continue that into their series against Baltimore, who I truly think does not have enough pitching to get through the postseason. The way to do it, got to get them done in a 5-game set against a good team like that, especially a good offensive team, and try to knock around that pitching. But I'm going to toss it to Tom here for his picks. So, Thomas, what do we got here?
Listen, I don't have a very going out on a limb World Series. I have the 2-1 seeds, but I do have some upsets. I do have some upsets along the way. First, I do have the Blue Jays getting to the ALCS. Again, due to the Yankees bidding against the Twins. I think the Blue Jays are another team that are very balanced. They have good pitching. They have good hitting. And I think this might be the year Houston took a little bit of a step back and the Jays are going to be able to clip them, but it's going to go 5 games. Orioles are then going to get a bit of a tired Blue Jays in the ALCS and be able to push past them. So I got that. I believe I have the Orioles getting past Texas. I think Texas is, again, they were fluttering at the end. I think they might get past Tampa and then Orioles take them out. NL side, again, I also have the Diamondbacks getting to the NLCS to the point where then they will just be sacrificed to the Braves, like everyone else will be sacrificed to them. Mm-hmm. And I'll also go out on the limb to say Braves in 6. I think the Braves win their first 2 games at home. Orioles fight back in Camden Yards, but then the Braves, they steal one in Camden, and then the Braves close it out at home in 6.
Yeah, I will tell you what, though, that ALCS would be such a fun series, I think, between the Blue Jays and the Orioles. I would love to see it. And honestly, I see Orioles, obviously, you have going to the World Series, Diamondbacks making a nice run. Those are the 2 teams in each side that I would like to see run the table. I don't have them in mind, and I'll get to mine in a moment, but I would love to see that ALCS of Blue Jays versus Orioles.
I think that'd be
not many Yankee fans would
be a lot of fun. I mean, listen, it'd be fun. It'd be fun baseball to watch.
Correct.
Yeah, most Yankee fans are going to watch it anyway. So,
So again, Tom and I going on a limb with the Braves here. Joseph, though, you really went on a limb with this
Yes,
one.
I did. Listen, postseason is all about momentum. It's all about weird things happening. I really like to give the Twins a win in the first round. I can. I think the Blue Jays are better. That being said, the Blue Jays are professional choke artists, so anything can happen in that series. I don't think the Blue Jays have any chance of getting past Houston. Houston, in the AL side of the bracket, I have to believe Houston's going to lose when I see it. As far as get into the World Series, they remind me of the Golden State Warriors from a few years ago. They kind of bored in the regular season up until the end. They turn it on just at the right time. I think Houston's extremely dangerous. And listen, Texas backed into the postseason. I know the Rays are not what they were when they started the year. The loss of Wander Franco, the loss of a couple of pitchers. But at the end of the day, Texas, I think, is out of bullets. I think they've totally they backed into the postseason. And when you do that, it's really, really hard to recover. Arizona, a little bit of the same story as Texas to me. They kind of escaped because the Reds and the Cubs were more incompetent than they were. Not because that they earned that spot so much. So for me, Arizona is going to have a good lesson here. They got a young team. They're going to be back. I like the Brewers in this for one reason only.
David Stearns.
And the fact of the matter is, it's only a matter of time. If they're going to do it, this is the year. Arizona is
cut loose that loser Stearns, and they're going to be freed from his just ineptitude of even firing a manager. I agree. You know what, Joe? Good point.
And the Dodgers are not quite what the Dodgers usually are. They have a great lineup, but their pitch in depth is a problem. Their bullpen is a big problem. The Phillies-Marlins series is going to be interesting. The Phillies, I'm kind of penalizing them from last year, just given the fact that they went on such a scorching hot run. Usually you get that comes back to bite you at some point. I think they don't get out of the first round. I think the Marlins got a little bit of momentum. They got a little hatred for the Mets that's fueling them into this run. And listen, the Braves are the Braves. I think they're going to get to the CS with ease. But, I'm counting on the Brewers pitching, bringing them a World Series title, and it'll be a fitting end to the Stearns era in Milwaukee.
I will say the one thing that jumps out to my mind immediately on this one is it kind of dampers the Craig Counsell to the Met conversation. So it'll be a little hard to leave after winning a ring there, unless he wants a little bit of a challenge and follow his buddy Stearns to New York.
That's it. Yep. He's fulfilled his thing. So.
Yep, we'll see. Andrew Corey also puts a good call out in the chat. Woodruff out for the postseason. That's definitely a blow. But Woodruff himself, too, only pitched, I think, 11 or 12 games this year. So it's not like he pitched the whole year and they lost him right at the end there. So they did do some work without him this year, but it is a tough loss nonetheless.
Yeah. Burns,
Brewers
Peralta,
to the World
Wade
Series.
Miley, those are the three guys.
Mm-hmm.
And Devin
Brewers
Williams
to the World Series. An interesting pick. Corey, wrap this up with your postseason predictions.
Yeah, and Rich, I got pretty much the same final as yours, just a little bit of a reverse. This is the bracket that is absolutely going to torment our New York fans, getting the hated Astros and the hated Braves for both the Mets and Yankees, especially on the Yankees side. The fans will be a little upset that I do have the Houston Cheaters winning it once again. This time getting a little bit of a revenge from the 2021 World Series where the Braves topped the Astros. I'm just going with the team that's been there, done it before with the Astros, taking out the Blue Jays, taking out the Rays. Again, the Astros have just been the model of consistency the last few years. And the Braves, we were just talking about them all along, too. I think they're the most balanced team. They're the team that does scare me the most. I think that's going to be a 7-game World Series set. Should be an exciting World Series when it does happen. But the other call-outs to make there, too, I do have the Marlins kind of keeping that positive momentum going, too, knocking off the Phils. I know Joe had the same. I would love to see the Diamondbacks make a deep run. But, again, I'm going to give the edge to the Dodgers. Again, a team that's been there, done that. Diamondbacks are young, ahead of their time, but their time has come very quickly. We'll see them again in the postseason next year. And the Orioles, another team I want to see make a deep run. I want that Orioles Diamondbacks World Series. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going to give the edge to the Rays, a team that's consistently been in the postseason last several years. But we'll see what happens in Birdtown.
All right. Corey, I have a question for you, and I'm going to ask everybody this in the reverse order. You had the Braves and the Astros in the World Series, but last year what we saw between the Phillies making it to the World Series, you never know what's going to happen. There's nothing off the board where a team like the Marlins could even make it to the World Series. Correct. So you look at your bracket here. Which team do you not have featured in your Fall Classic do you see making a dark horse run at the World Series this year?
Of the teams in here that could potentially make a dark horse run, I would say the Blue Jays. I would say the Blue Jays as a 6th seed. The Astros, they were just a 6th seed. What was it? I think right before yesterday's matchups, they were projected to be a 6th seed. And I still had them making the run too. So we'll see what happens. Phillies, another team, like you mentioned, they just snuck into the playoffs last year. They were one of the last seeds. I think they were the 6th seed last year when it mattered, and they made it to the World Series. So I'm going to go with the Blue Jays as a 6th seed who could potentially make a run into the World Series.
Joe, same question.
I hate the Blue Jays. I mean, no offense to Corey's pick, obviously. For me, the Blue Jays are it's the same story every single year. When they win a series, call me and wake me up. I actually think the answer is the Rays here. The Rays were such a heavy favorite all year. They obviously had their fair share of issues. They still have a tremendously talented team. They are often the most overlooked team in baseball. So for me, they know how to play Baltimore. They're not scared of the Birds by any stretch of the imagination. So for me, the Rays are always a threat to make a run. And I think the fact that they're being overlooked both because of their injuries to some of their pitchers and the absence of Wander Franco doesn't shy away from the fact that they still got a tremendously talented team. Yandy Diaz won a batting title. They have a lot of talent on that team, and I think as usual, just because they're small market, just because they have a low payroll, they're getting overlooked.
Tom?
I think it's the Blue Jays also. I agree with Corey. I think they have the pitching to do it. They have, between Gausman, Bassett, Barrios, Kikuchi, they have the guys they have the horses to make it happen. I just think they're going to have a battle of the series against Houston. I think Baltimore is going to be able to really kind of just get past Texas quick, and they're going to come in a lot more rested, which will allow them to line up a little bit better. But yeah, I think Toronto really could make it. It would be weird that they go for a team that hasn't even been able to make the playoffs in the past couple of years to the World Series, but they are a dangerous team. The Rogers Center is an absolute just a nut house. If that place gets rocking, I can see the Blue Jays getting there.
And for me, it's the same team that kind of kicked off this question. For me, it's the Philadelphia Phillies. I think the Phillies have enough to make that dark horse run. And yeah, you have the biggest climb. If you get into the next round, you have to face Atlanta. Again, it's a best-of-5 series, and we have seen in the past generational teams that look like they were compared to the 98 Yankees. I'm talking about the Dodgers from a few years ago, get knocked out in that first round because there's just simply not enough game to recover. And this team that just entered this next round of the playoffs has the momentum. The Phillies were there last year. I think this Phillies team is actually a better team than the team that went to the World Series last year. I think they have enough tools to make it happen. It's just that second round matchup which will determine. I'm actually convinced if the Phillies do beat the Braves somehow, some way, they get to the next round, beat the Braves, Phillies go to the World Series this year.
Interesting. That problem is their bullpen. Their bullpen is rough, and if you trust Kimbrel or Sir Anthony Dominguez for an out with your life on the line, I don't know. And the defense is a problem. I think they showed that flaw last year after the run. So
yeah, I was gonna say, I think another thing that was mentioned, like the Rogers Center is a place that gives absolutely nuts. Philly fans are famous for it. I saw a tweet actually during the show. Granted, it's from Bob Nightingale, so who knows if these numbers are correct? But it was the get-in costs for the wild card round. So it's only the home teams the wild card, so it does not have everyone. The Phillies get-in cost. Anyone want to guess?
it's gotta be like $400.
Just to get it, like the cheapest current available seat.
Oh,
Maybe
200.
That's standing room only, probably, right?
For Tampa, $33.
Oh,
for
let's go.
From
let's go, road trip. Let's go.
$22. For Minnesota,
unbelievable.
$7. For $7, you could go to a playoff game in Minnesota.
Yeah, because no one's gonna go to that snow globe.
Citizens Bank Park is going to be absolutely going nuts, and that is going to factor in, and that's why I like that also, Rich. It's just the problem is, even though it was the Braves are just such a buzzsaw. Like, I don't care. You could have the most electric atmosphere ever. I think the Braves are just there.
The Braves are just such a deep, balanced team overall.
Yep, they
but
are.
We'll see.
Well, that is our postseason push. So we're going to continue our coverage next week and keep that segment rolling. We'll update our brackets as we go on. We actually have no choice. We have to, because by the time next week comes around, it'll be the next round of the playoffs. Yep. So good luck to all the teams except for our division rivals. And let's see how it goes over the next few days. Listen,
I would much rather anyone from the AL East win than the Astros.
Oh, no. If it's Astros Braves, I will be sporting the Astros merch.
Absolutely. Obviously you will. You're a Mets fan.
Absolutely.
Thomas, tell the faithful all about our other ways to live stream on YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah, so Twitch, our original home, one of the best ways to interact with us live during the show, as Andrew has been doing along the way. Get your comments read out on screen. Yes, but he was actually commenting from YouTube. So YouTube's another area where you can watch live. Get your comments in there, get involved in the chat, have a lot of fun with us. And then YouTube also is an area where we have all of our archive episodes. We have clips. We have some of our whatever they're called, shorts. So they're shorts on YouTube, right?
Shorts, yes.
Shorts, yeah. I'm like Reels. Nope, that's Instagram. So you can check that out there. We'll be doing some fun stuff during the postseason. Give us a like, a comment, subscribe, share, whatever other buttons you want. If you want to hit dislike, go for it. I guess interaction.
And do that now so you don't miss our next week's episode number 63, Monday, October the 9th, 7:00 p.m. Eastern time, as the weekly episodes will cover just really the postseason and any big news with the Yanks and Mets as we move along into the month of October. Gentlemen, we'll start with Tom here. Any final words of wisdom, thank yous, and whatnot? What do you got?
I'm just ready to go to bed. I'm a tired boy.
That's fair. Joseph?
No, thank you guys for being there and having me back. It's good to be back, and we really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yep, just a shout out for me once again to our good friend James Kelly. Congratulations to you and your fiance Rose. Yeah. Fun weekend with the bachelor party, and more to come.
All righty, and just want to thank you guys all for tuning in. Core, I saw you in the chat, lighting up the chat. Really appreciate that. And for anybody really checking us out still, while we're closing out baseball as a whole, the regular season is over, but the postseason is trudging along. Stick with us. We'll be back here next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Take care.